Hello and welcome, everyone. Thank you for taking the time today to join us to learn more about the democracy cycle. I am Boo Frabel. I am the director of the democracy cycle. And today I will go through the information available in the submission guides, which you may view on our website, and we'll put a link in the chat as well to those. If you want to follow along, all the information I am sharing will be in that submissions guide. This session will be recorded and posted to the Democracy Cycle's webpage on the PAC NYC website if you want to revisit it later. We have about 60 minutes together today, and we'll spend most of our time introducing the program, talking through eligibility requirements, and the application and review process. We'll also discuss the timeline and share resources for application support, along with some information about PAC NYC and Galvin initiatives. We'll save the last part of our time together in Q&A to address your questions. Here's that link to the submission guidelines again if you want to follow along. So, on today's call, I am Boo Frabel, director of the Democracy Cycle, and that's Frabel like table. My pronouns are she, her, and I am joining you from New York City at the Perelman Performing Arts Center at the World Trade Center, or PAC NYC for short. I am joined by the fabulous Naomi Vernon, who is an IT support specialist at PAC NYC, and her pronouns are she, her. Naomi will now take us through the format of today's webinar.
Okay, so hello everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'd like to go over the format of this webinar. To ask any questions, click the Q&A button in your menu bar and type in your questions. Please feel free to type your questions as they come to you. We will stack those questions up and address them at the end of the session. For captions, you can click the live transcript option to have closed captioning. Please note that this is done by a computer, so it may not be 100% accurate. You probably have noticed already, but participants will not be able to turn on their camera or sound during this webinar. Thank you all so much.
Thanks, Naomi. And a note on accessibility. The online platform for applications is Submittable, which has attained a Voluntary Product Accessibility Template, or VPAT, affirming that the platform is accessible to a wide range of submitters with disabilities and follows industry standards as outlined in the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines 2.0. If you have additional needs or questions, you may contact Paul Bearhorst, Accessibility Manager at PAC NYC, at paul.bearhorst@pacnyc.org or by phone at 303-249-1425. Now, some basic info about the Democracy Cycle. The Democracy Cycle is a new commissioning and development program. It's a collaboration between PAC NYC and Galvin Initiatives, in which over 5 years we will commission and develop 25 new performing arts works across the fields of theater, dance, music, opera, and multidisciplinary performance that express themes related to the nature, practice, and experience of democracy, particularly as it is practiced in the United States. The application is open now and submittable, and again, that's our submission and review platform at submittable.com, and the deadline is Monday, April 1st by 5 p.m. Eastern Time. All Open Call 2024 applicants will be notified of their project status by October 2024. Commissioned artists will receive a $30,000 commission to create a new work of live performance, plus a further $30,000 to support the development of that work, for a total of $60,000 in support from the Democracy Cycle. We expect to award 8 commissions in 2024. There will be 2 more open calls in the Democracy Cycle. The second will begin in January 2025, awarding 8 more commissions, and the third in January 2026, awarding 9 more commissions for a total of 25. And now for a little information about us. The Democracy Cycle is a joint project of the Perelman Performing Arts Center, or PAC NYC, and Galvin Initiatives, or Galvin, and is made possible by generous support from Galvin's Public Forum program. PAC NYC is a new home for emerging and established artists in theater, dance, music, opera, film, and media from New York City and around the world. Flexible in design, the center is fully responsive to artists' creative visions. Intimate in scale, PAC NYC fosters an immediate connection between artists and audience members. PAC NYC's mission is to create connections by cultivating bonds between extraordinary artists and communities, with exemplary performances in active dialogue across the arts and in our flexible, intimate spaces, inviting conversation and new relationships. Our art and our audiences reflect the dynamic energy of all 5 boroughs of New York City. Our work asks all of us to consider and embrace the complexities of society. Together, we welcome the entire world. Galvin Initiatives aims to advance the common good by supporting strong advocates, vibrant communities, and cultural expressions that foster civic action through 3 core programs. The first is the Henry von Ammeringen Advocacy Fund. The Henry von Ammeringen Advocacy Fund. The HVA Advocacy Fund supports organizations that advocate for social justice and protecting fundamental rights. This program funds those fighting for the common good locally, nationally, and worldwide. 2, community building. Galvin's Community Building Initiative invests in creating spaces that support democracy in pursuit of the common good. And 3, the Public Forum. Galvin's Public Forum program is dedicated to exploring the meaning, experience, and future of American democracy through the arts, letters, scientific inquiry, and open dialogue spanning those disciplines. Okay, let's get into it. So, the purpose of the democracy cycle. Our hope is that the Commission projects will enrich and expand discussion of and participation in democracy, as it is practiced within the United States and worldwide, be it in the national, state, regional, or hyper-local community realms. The Democracy Cycle project is inspired by the following 5 beliefs generated by the Democracy Cycle Working Group. 1. Democratic values are a global expression of humanity's striving to live with one another with respect and in peace. 2. Democracy, as practiced in the United States, includes a history of founding exclusions. It has been and must continue to be the ongoing work of our society to expand upon the ideals of inclusivity embedded in our founding documents. 3. Democracy faces significant perceived and actual threats in the current moment, both domestically and internationally. 4. The intersection of capitalism and democracy creates both opportunities and tensions. 5. Artists are the beating heart of democratic values because of their ability to imagine new worlds, envision new possibilities, and provoke meaningful discourse across divides. Please note that the primary focus of the democracy cycle will be on democracy as it's currently being practiced in the United States. However, commissioned projects may include references to democracies worldwide, providing the projects have potential for informing and deepening our understanding of American democracy. So, eligibility. Applicants are required to complete the eligibility screen and submittable before they may begin their application. One-on-one eligibility consultations may be scheduled with me via Calendly if you have questions. However, please note that in those consultations, I cannot give you feedback on your project narrative or watch your work samples, but I can answer what questions you may have on whether you or your project are eligible. Artists may submit only one application as lead artist, but may be named as a collaborator on other applications. Applications must be submitted by the artist, not by an organization, producer, or agent, etc. Finally, fellowships are awarded to artists, not organizations. Keeping on with the eligibility, eligible artists are generative artists currently creating new original live performance work in the theater, dance, music, opera, or multidisciplinary fields. We do not fund remounts or adaptations of existing works. Eligible artists have completed and presented at least 2 full-length prior works of live performance publicly, though not in a degree-granting program. Ineligible artists include students enrolled full-time in a degree granting program, artists under the age of 18, and artists, including any of the main collaborators who are employees of PAC NYC or Galvin Initiatives, immediate family of employees of PAC NYC or Galvin Initiatives, or consultants to PAC NYC or Galvin. Projects are ineligible if the main purpose of the project is the curation or documentation of existing work. If the proposed project has already premiered or is planned to premiere before November 1st, 2024, if the proposed work advocates by name for the success or failure of a partisan candidate for office or political party, and projects are ineligible if the proposed work is not meant to be performed live by live performers in front of a live audience. Okay, on to the timeline. On January 16th, 2024, the application portal opened on Submittable for the 2024 open call. Then on February 15th, 2024 is the live info session webinar. Hello. On April 1st, 2024 at 5:00 p.m. EST is the application deadline for the 2024 open call. Then from May through June 2024, submitted applications will be screened for eligibility by Democracy Cycle staff. Eligible proposals are then reviewed by a minimum of 2 readers. Using the readers' evaluative scores, a list of finalists will be developed. From July through September 2024, a peer panel drawn from the fields of performing arts and the study and practice of democracy will review and discuss the finalist proposals and select 8 projects to receive Democracy Cycle commissions. In the fall of 2024, all round 1 applicants will be notified of their project's status. In early 2025, the round 2 2025 open call timeline and guidelines will be announced. In early 2026, the round 3 2026 open call timeline and guidelines will be announced. Selection criteria. All readers and panelists will consider the following in selecting the commissioned projects. How does the proposed work model, hold accountable, expand, critique, or celebrate democracy? How does the proposed work address the practice and experience of democracy and democratic ideals? How has the artist or artists identified and responded to ideas or themes related to democracy, including core democratic principles and values? For examples, those include political equality, majority rule, minority rights, freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, and freedom of religion, among others. This is key. And does the work demonstrate clear potential for generating meaningful reflection and discourse on democracy as demonstrated by the project narrative, samples of prior work, and the artistic history of its collaborators? Again, you will submit your application through Submittable, and that's at www.submittable.com. To do so, you need to have or create a free Submittable account. The application requests the following information: name and contact info of lead artist, and each Democracy Cycle commission will be awarded directly to an individual generative artist. In cases where the work is being made by a collective, please select one artist as lead artist to represent the application on the collective's behalf. Then the application asks for the lead artist's primary artistic discipline. Although you may work in multiple disciplines, selecting one discipline helps us organize and assign applications to knowledgeable readers and panelists. Please select the discipline in which you would be most comfortable being reviewed. Then the name of the company or organization, if applicable. If this is not applicable, you should just write NA or not applicable. Moving on. The application also requests the following information: a narrative description or project narrative of your proposed project. We ask that the lead artist share the core ideas and intended creative process of the proposed work in a 3,500 character narrative or a 5-minute video or audio submission. Now, it is very useful to remember here that straightforward descriptions are the most helpful to orient the readers and panelists in this section. Don't use up all of your characters in explaining the concept, but do go into how you plan to make that concept a live performance. How will that translate to the stage? As artists and professionals themselves, the readers and panelists understand that the work is nuanced and may be challenging to capture in any narrative description. But the narrative description is a place to ground them with as concrete a description as you are able to provide. Please include the following in your project narrative in whatever sequence you prefer. What is the core form of the work? A scripted play, devised theater piece, a musical, a dance work, a dance theater piece, a song cycle, chamber opera, multidisciplinary movement work, or something else? Then how do you intend the work to stimulate dialogue or analysis around the idea of democracy or democracy's current state of practice, particularly as it is practiced in the United States? Please note, this prompt is key in helping the selection community understand the work's alignment with the goals of this commission. What is your approach to creating this work? Please briefly describe your creative process. How does your work typically take shape? If you have already begun making the proposed work, what has your approach looked like to date? Another note here, please know that we understand that your processes may differ from work to work, or that it may change within a single work, within this work. Any insights on how your works tend to develop are welcome. And then, do you have other existing support, such as a producer or additional commissioners? Please note, this is for informational purposes. The commission is open to works at any stage of development. And I'm going to take a little pause here. All right, then contact info for one professional reference. Please share here the name of a colleague that you feel might speak best to your work and creative practice. This might be a collaborator or a producer or presenter with whom you've worked in the past. Please do not include your current collaborators on this project or those who may have a direct financial stake in a positive outcome for this commission. Then the resume or CV and the narrative bios for up to 3 collaborating artists. Please upload an artistic resume or CV detailing artistic and/or professional experiences for yourself and for up to 3 artistic collaborators. While we recognize that producers often play a strongly creative role, we do ask that collaborators named here be generative artists. If you like, you could include your producer in the "Is there anything else you would like us to know about your work?" field at the end of the application. Please also provide a short narrative bio for yourself and also for up to 3 main collaborators. If you're working as a collective, please also provide an additional short bio for the collective itself. Next, you will be asked to input a projected project budget for the creation process on the form provided. We do understand that you may be in the early stage of the work and that both income and expenses are prospective and estimated at this time. There are sample budget line items in the submission guidelines. Feel free to either use those or to use your own expense categories. And please include expense and income items that add up to balance against each other or show a small surplus. For example, if you have income that includes the $30,000 commission, the $30,000 in project development support, maybe another projected $10,000 grant, perhaps $8,000 in anticipated individual contributions, and let's say $5,000 of in-kind support. That totals $83,000 in income, I hope. And in order to be a balanced budget, your expenses should also come to a total of $83,000. And yes, you should show both the $30,000 commission and the $30,000 in development support in your budget as projected income. One important note, in the budget form in Submittable, put only numbers in the right-hand column. No dollar signs, no words, only numbers, or it won't auto-compute. All words and descriptions should go in the left-hand column, such as your expense type or your income type. For income, in the left-hand column, mark all of your sources of income either as projected or as confirmed. Again, in the left-hand column, after the type of income. For example, quote, individual contributions, parentheses, projected, close parentheses, close quote. All right, so now we're up to the timeline for the development of the work. Please identify major milestones and associated dates surrounding the project's conception, production, funding, and presentation, starting from the initial stages of the creation of the work through to the imagined completion. Please indicate where you are in this timeline at the time of submission. For example, a timeline could include milestones such as September 2021, a writing residency at X residency organization. December 2021, collaborator Y joined the project. January 2022 through December 2022, conversations, writing sessions, and fundraising. January 2023, a work in progress showing with feedback session. February 2023, awarded grant for project development. April 2023, developmental residency with full company. July 2023, tech residency with work in progress showing. And October 2023, the work premieres at X venue. We understand that milestones are subjective and that there are likely many of them inside your process. Please include no fewer than 7 and no more than 15 milestones from beginning to completion of the project. Now, completion can mean different things in different disciplines. For theater, it could mean arriving at what you consider to be a final draft of the script. For devised theater, it could mean arriving at what you consider to be a final draft of the piece on its feet. For music or opera, it could mean completing the score and or libretto. One second. And in work samples, moving on to work samples rather, please submit for your work samples recent relevant work samples in the form of images, videos, audio, PDF docs, and or links. See submittable for the format specs. Relevant work samples are those that speak best to your current practice and share some characteristics with the proposed work, either in form or content. Although there are exceptions, typically work samples that are more than 5 years old are not as helpful to the readers and panelists as those from more recent works, which is not to say don't use those, but think about what work samples you're submitting and where they fall in your creative trajectory. Feel free to reach out for guidance to democracy.cycle@PAC-NYC if you have questions. URL links for videos are welcome. And because video work samples should be no longer than 5 contiguous minutes, please include cue points when pointing the panel to an online sample. And please make sure to include all necessary passwords. Again, please make sure to include all necessary passwords. Please include a short description of all samples, including the title and the year completed. And if there is a clear connection in theme or form between the sample of a prior work and the proposed project, it can be extremely helpful to briefly point that out for reviewers. And then if you're submitting 2 video work samples, one may be a work in progress from the proposed project if such exists. For example, a video documentation of a work in progress showing of your live performance project that you are submitting to the democracy cycle. Righty, then we're moving on to So work samples can vary by, oh, I think I went backwards. Okay, here we go. Now we're on to the optional questions. Anything else to share? This is an optional question, and you should feel free to leave it blank if you want to. However, it's there to give the opportunity that if there's anything else you would like us to know about your work, this question is open space to briefly offer relevant information that may not be covered elsewhere in the application, such as talking about your creative producer, as we mentioned in the collaborator section. Then another area of optional questions are the request for demographic information questions. Again, this section is fully optional. The information collected from this section will allow PAC NYC to evaluate the effectiveness of our outreach. Specifically, this data will allow us the opportunity to strengthen future requests for proposals and open call processes. Okay, we're almost done now of this part of the webinar. For further resources, please see the Democracy Cycle web pages on the PAC NYC website, and that is www.pacnyc.org/the-democracy-cycle. Also from that page, you can get to the Democracy Cycle submission guidelines and also the Democracy Cycle FAQs, or frequently asked questions. The FAQs will be regularly updated as we get more questions. Finally, we want to let you know how you can reach us throughout this process. If you have questions about your eligibility or general questions about the program, I encourage you to sign up for a one-on-one consultation with me using the Calendly link on the website. You may also email democracy.cycle@pacnyc.org with any questions not answered in this webinar, on the website, in the submission guidelines, or in the FAQs. Please note that because our capacity is limited, you should plan to allow at least 7 business days for an answer to an emailed question. And remember, applications for the Democracy Cycle are due Monday, April 1st, 2024, before 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We want to emphasize that our deadline is not midnight. This is so we can be available to support any issues around submission during working hours and before the deadline. Please note that once applications are submitted, they may not be edited or updated. Late applications will not be accepted, and incomplete applications will not be considered. Some advice here: to avoid encountering any technical difficulties that prevent you from completing your application, we strongly recommend that you have all of your material uploaded and your application finished and submitted by or before March 27th, or several days before the actual deadline. This is to avoid the rush hour and submit in advance of the deadline and avoid any last minute things that might happen. You know, technology. All right. It looks like we have some questions asked in the Q&A. And if you're thinking of one but haven't yet asked, please do type in your questions there so we may address them. Let's see. What do we have here? Oh my gosh. Okay, y'all. You're coming through with the questions. All right. So I am going to look at these and kind of group them together. I'll start at the beginning. Does the Democracy Cycle have a preference for projects at certain stages of development? For example, is it preferable that projects are at the beginning stage? No, we don't have a preference. As long as the project is not planned to premiere before November 1st, 2024. The project contemplated can be at the beginning of conception, or it can be in at a stage where you're doing open workshops, as long as it is not planned to premiere before November 1, 2024. Excuse me. Then does the democracy cycle have a quota for how many of each discipline? We do not. In the application, how do you define generative artists? This means the artist who is actually making the work. For music, it's the composer. For opera, it is the composer or librettist. In theater, it is the playwright. In devised theater, pick one member of your collaborative group. In dance, it's the choreographer. Can a short film be an example of a writing sample? No. But thanks. Can a partially completed application and submittable be bookmarked for a completion later? Yes, it can. You may save your work and return back to it. However, once you have submitted it, then you can no longer edit it. Once submitted, it's done. Are these commissions paid directly to individual artists, or do we need to have a fiscal sponsor? Directly to individual artists. Do we need to propose a performance project that is only presented in a traditional theater space? Or can it be performed in a variety of both theater and non-traditional spaces? The latter. I would love to see proposals that are both to be performed in a traditional theater space, also some site-specific spaces, some social practice work that could be in various spaces. It is not just traditional proscenium theater. Thank you for that. Can you please clarify what full length means regarding the two previous works? That is an evening length. So if you've done a 5-minute dance piece, that does not actually fulfill that requirement. Do readings/workshop presentations also fulfill the public presentation requirement? I'm sorry, it does not. Even if they're open to an invited audience, that does not fulfill the public presentation requirement. Understanding that the grant will go to the artists, can the work be in development or get an enhancement with a separate not-for-profit organization? Absolutely. Bring on your other funders. That's fabulous. However, you do not need to have other funders. Both of those things are fine. Are there any presenting commitments from PAC or requirements? I think what you're asking, Maddie, is does PAC commit to presenting the commission's projects? PAC has the opportunity to present commissioned projects, but not the obligation. And whether that would happen would be in conversation with the commissioned artists through the development process. How does that guideline apply to a collective that would apply together? I'm not actually sure what that question means, because I think it was separated from each other. Okay. Another question. I'm going down these as fast as I can. We have about 23 more minutes available, and I'll answer as many as possible. So the question is, just to be clear, the narrative is not 3,500 words, it's 3,500 characters. Correct, 3,500 characters. Is it allowed to have a collaborating group of more than 4 artists? Yes, absolutely. The thing is, you can only name 3 of the collaborators. So you can only name 4 people. The lead artist who's doing the application and up to 3 collaborating artists. If you want to name more than that, you could put it in the, is there anything else you'd like us to know about your project question? May the piece be family friendly? Absolutely. Can it be created with both adults and children in mind? Please, I welcome that. You said the commission is open to any stage of development, so are you looking for fully completed scripts or just a concept for a script? Should it not be a production ready show? I am not looking for fully completed scripts. I'm looking for things that are still in process, that are either just being conceived, an idea that is just in the conception stage or in the development stage, but not fully developed. How long should the CV resume be? I recommend no longer than 2 pages. If you have been a collaborative artist on past full-length works, does that count as being eligible? Or do you have to be the lead artist on 2 full-length works? That's a good question. And I think that speaks to collectives and collectively created, devised work. And I think if you are a main collaborator, that does count as being an eligible work. Will we be sent this presentation afterwards? I am going to have this the recording of this webinar available on the website, and so you'll be able to see the presentation in that link. Does the professional reference need to be an artist, or can it be a person with whom we have worked in both artistic and social justice capacities? Yes, it absolutely can be a person with whom you've worked in both artistic and social justice capacities. That sounds fabulous. Can the cycle designers share why the commission can only go to an individual and not an organization? The reasoning behind that is a bit long to go into here fully, but it comes from experiences that other granting organizations have had with another organization applying for the grant and being granted the funding, and having some controversy happen around the funds and their distribution. So we've simplified it here. I've already answered that. For projects that are the beginning of the iteration, should the timeline be optimistic, including milestones that are not secure yet, or should it be more rooted in what we can? Oh, definitely put in what you anticipate the timeline to be. It doesn't all have to be in place. It is your plan, not necessarily what you all have nailed down, but what you plan to have happen. Let's see. Okay, 2 questions in this one. Is a director a generative artist collaborator? That depends on the kind of work you're making. If you are in a collaborative ensemble and you are all creating the work together, yes. If you are coming into a project and the playwright has finished the script and you are now going to direct it, I think the playwright would need to be the lead artist. You could be named as a collaborator, but the artist creating the script would need to be the lead artist applicant. Second question, if you are just beginning development of the project and have thus no milestones other than its creation and 1 award, perhaps, but nothing else yet, is that okay? Well, what we're looking for here is for you to look out into over the next couple of years and think about what those milestones would be, and make your timeline based on that. You need to have at least 7 milestones and no more than 15. Are there dates for when the commission ends or when a project must be completed? What dates should the proposed timeline fall within? Great question. For this first open call, we are asking for artists to plan for their project to be completed within 3 years, within 2025, 2026, or 2027. Those dates will shift for the next 2 open calls. Can we submit a PDF with links to work samples? I think you mean links to video work samples. Yes. Then you mentioned that the budget should include the commission fee and the development funds. what are the expectations on how the $30,000 commission versus the $30,000 development funds are spent? How much of the commission can be spent on supporting the artist through the creation of the work as commission fees are traditionally intended? That's a great question. Thank you for that. For the $30,000 commission, we expect and hope for those funds to be spent on making it possible for the artist, the generative artist, to make room in your life, your busy life, to make the piece. So whether that means paying your rent for a few months so that you can not worry about that and can carve out time for the writing or the choreography or the composing, that's fantastic. Whether that means taking yourself out to a cabin somewhere away from your day-to-day life, maybe with no internet, if that's what it takes for you to hunker down and focus on creating your new work, absolutely, please spend it on that. So I think there are a variety of ways that could take shape. Then the $30,000 in development funds are meant to support things like research, things like rehearsal room rental, things like maybe traveling somewhere if you need to go look something up or go work with a particular artist or other collaborator. And as artists are commissioned, I will work closely with them on what those things entail. And there won't be a strict number of categories. It really will be us working together to figure out what's right for you and for the development of your project. I'm a little scared at the number of questions that there still are, but I will keep on sorting it out. 5 minutes total of videos from various works or of each work. 5 continuous minutes from each work. You please do not put together a greatest hit video that totals 5 minutes of clips. No, please, no, that's not helpful at all. So 5 minutes of continuous video. Thanks for asking that. Alrighty, so question about, these are really great questions, you guys. Thank you so much for asking them. Question about needing to include work from the last 5 years. With our work, live performances really were on pause from 2020 to mid-2022 because of the pandemic, meaning we'd only be looking at work samples from the last 3 years. Yeah, you're right. So again, that's not a rigid time frame. It's I know that some people were making work and performing it during that time, but it's not a rigid time frame. Let's see. Apologies if I missed this, but is a public performance engagement at PAC NYC part of receiving this grant, or is it just a grant? Again, I mentioned this, and it's also in the FAQs. For each commission project, PAC NYC has first right of refusal to premiere each commissioned piece, but no obligation. And that's good for a few different reasons. That means each commissioned project is not tied into having to design your project for PAC spaces. And then also PAC has regular programming. So it'll be impossible actually for PAC to present all 8 commissioned projects from the first open call in one season. So it would be really fantastic if it does work out for a commissioned project to work in PAC spaces and for the artist to be really happy to utilize the spaces. But it's not a requirement. So perhaps an artist would need a different kind of space. For example, commission projects that are site specific. Or want a different sort of number of seats. So again, that's going to be something that I'll work with each commissioned artist to move forward with and find the right fit. Let's see. Then in terms of further development, what resources is PAC providing? So here's the thing, PAC doesn't have rehearsal space to offer. So we're offering resources. We're offering resources in the shape of money for you to rent rehearsal spaces elsewhere. You will also have me as a resource to work with as a kind of a consultant to bounce ideas off of, to maybe, maybe I can help you talk through developmental plans. Maybe I can help connect you with some other organizations or resources. There's no guarantee of that, but it's my hope that I will be able to help out in those ways. Excuse me. Then the next one, if you apply to the first round of applications and are rejected, may you apply for future rounds, either with an updated proposal for the same project or an entirely new project? Yes and yes. Thank you for that question. Are there any requirements on how commission funds are spent? There are some requirements. So, maybe don't go on a cruise. But essentially we would talk, you and I, about what would support your work to create this new piece. And if you've got a way in which you feel that you could be supported to do that I haven't thought of, and it makes sense to me, let's go for it. Let's see. Should the character count include spaces? Yes, the character count includes spaces. In Submittable, there's a little countdown of the characters that you have left, so that'll be helpful. If you're working on your application in a Google Doc, which actually is a great idea to do, to work on your application outside of Submittable, you can always go to Tools and check character counts there, which do include spaces. Let's see. What is the relationship between PAC NYC, Galvin initiatives, and any works created via the commission after the commission is complete? That is going to be project by project. But the intent here is to create a long-term relationship between commissions and PAC NYC, and potentially Galvin as well. Is the program only eligible for NYC or New York residents? That's a great question. The program is actually national and international. This commission is open for artists around the world. So please do tell all of your friends nationally and internationally. Can the $30,000 to produce the work be used to pay collaborative artists? Just to clarify that, I think you're talking about the $30,000 in developmental funds. Yes, that can be used to pay collaborative artists for rehearsals, for your creative fees, for costs incurred during developmental phases of the work. For milestones, would a full production be a reasonable end milestone or too ambitious for this fellowship? The milestones for this developmental process would end right before the full production. So please do have it in your timeline if that's what if that helps you to see it in there, but we are not supporting production costs. We're supporting development costs. How are we doing, Naomi? Do we
We have
have?
about 7 minutes left.
Okay, we have about 7 minutes left. I'll hit again as many questions as I can, but please know that you may schedule a one-on-one consultation with me via Calendly, and you can find that link on the Democracy Cycle website pages. Let's see, when putting the $30,000 commission fee in the project budget, can you reflect that that is what would be used as playwright stipend or something like that? Yes, that could be part of that $30,000. I would like you to break it up a little bit and say, you know, what will that stipend be covering? Will that be covering your cost of living for a period of time, including rent and bills and food? Or would that just be covering rent, etc.? But yes, and also I would also urge you to include a fee, a creative fee for yourself out of that $30,000 stipend that that is just to you. I strongly encourage you to pay yourself. Will the projected budget be revised upon acceptance, or will artists be held to what they submitted? Definitely revisions will be in order. And if this is the very beginning of your process, the budget that you submit will definitely be an early projection. So yes, I will not hold you to anything in there. But which is not to say don't put thought into it. Please put thought into it. But you're not going to be held to it. Is the Democracy Cycle amenable to projects geared towards young audiences? Yes, absolutely. Can you define premiere? Our company regularly shows work to our audiences several times over 2 or more years. Have we premiered that work? Hi. A premiere, in my mind, is when you consider the work to be done, when you are naming it as a premiere in your marketing materials, and when you invite press. And I think when you say our company regularly shows work to your audiences several times, I think you might mean workshop showings. And I don't consider those as premieres. I think a premiere is when you name it and when you consider the piece done and when you invite press. Great question. Does the live performance need to premiere in the PAC NYC space, or could it be cited as a temporary public artwork in Lower Manhattan? As long as it's performance-based, as long as it has a live component, it could be a temporary public artwork in Lower Manhattan. That would be actually really interesting. Let's see. Here's a good one. Is it possible to submit an application that describes the project with both video and the written statement, or does it have to be solely one or the other? It is one or the other, so please pick one. Thanks for that question. Are the projects limited to stage-based works, or will there be consideration to site-specific projects? Yes, absolutely consideration to site-specific projects. Thank you. Does a play about slavery topics and or historical people related to that period qualify? Yes, and in your project narrative, I ask that you very clearly identify and expound upon how your subject relates to democracy. I have my own answer to that question, but I want to hear yours. I want to hear your thinking and your reasoning about how the work that you are conceiving relates to the theme. And that's true across the board for all projects. Please put a lot of thought into that, and please state it as clearly as possible in your project narrative. And I would advise you to run it by someone else and see if it makes sense to them, which is kind of a good idea overall with grants in general. We have just 2 minutes. And again, I'm not going to get to every question. I apologize. And these are such fantastic questions. And I'm so delighted to see you all here. Um, I'm going to answer 2 more questions. Who is the generative artist of a musical? That could be either the book writer or the composer, the playwright or the person composing the music. And then for a playwright, can a completed script be a final project or is a public performance required? For a playwright, yes, a completed script could be the completion point for this commission. Though a public performance should be aimed towards in future. Let's see, can the generative artist for a devised theater be a director producer? I answered this a bit above. If the devised theater group is a collective and everyone gives input, creative input, and is part of the creative process, that director can be the generative artist, the lead artist. The producer, no. However, you can name that producer in the optional question at the end of the application. Is there anything else you'd like us to know about your project? If for a theater show I don't have all the cast, is it a problem? No, it is not. This is development, and I would be worried if you had all the cast. This commission is to develop a project. So please concentrate on writing the script. So let's see. In neither the presentation or the chat, none of the links are live. If you cut and paste them out of the chat, you can just put them right into your browser. But if in general you go on to pacnyc.org and look for the democracy cycle under artistic initiatives, all the links are there. Again, that's pacnyc.org, pacnyc.org, and search for the democracy cycle under artistic initiatives. All of the links are live there. So I think that, is there a preference for works in any specific geographic region, or is the intention to support works across the country? There is not a preference. And again, this is a national and international call. So we're hoping to get submissions and proposals from across the world. Let's see. Naomi, have you looked for, okay, I'm gonna answer this one because this is it a problem if no video samples are available for a theater application? Actors Equity doesn't allow recording of stage readings, for example. I believe actually Actors Equity has relaxed a little bit on that point. And they have given permission for their members to record and use short samples of works specifically for funding and commissioning applications. So I think again, one last, I really mean it this time. This is my last question that I'll answer. And then we're gonna have to bring this to an end because it's 2:02 and I want to respect your time. The question is there a preference for projects that build on previous work so that there are thematically related work samples, or is there openness to proposing a completely new project with a new theme that is at the very beginning? There is not a preference. There is openness to each of those things, either projects that build on previous works or a completely new project with a new theme that is at the very beginning. The thing there is, again, in the project narrative section of the application, just be as clear as possible about how you are identifying and expounding upon how your project relates to the themes of democracy as we lay them out. I think that's what we can do today. I apologize if I didn't get to your question. And I hope that this was helpful. And again, please be in touch if you have further questions. And remember that the deadline for the application is April 1st at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a good day.